This is Tony T here from Tony'sPicks.com with our college football pick show. This is week 5, part 4. These are the games for Saturday. We'll have 17 more games. We'll have the rest of them now, so that's all 47 for Saturday. We'll have after we give you this round of 17. For more free pick videos, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Lots of free picks over our channel delivered by myself, as well as our team of cappers here at Tony'sPicks.com, making it a great channel to subscribe to. Give us a like and thumbs up. We greatly appreciate it. It really helps to build up our audience. We go live every day, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. It is the Tony's Picks Morning Show. The cappers join me, give out live free picks. So guys, make sure you tune in. We are looking for cappers. You can apply, send us an email to apply, and then visit our site, Tony'sPicks.com. We're a multi-capper site showcasing top performers in our industry. Click the links to the hot cappers, get signed up to long-term passes. You see our top performers up here, guys like Sean Higgs, Rod, up there on the leaderboard, Brian Biller, guys you see from our live shows, as well as our YouTube videos. Ron Crawford coming up here. Alan, you know it's a big day. Yours truly, Justin in there as well. Brian. Latest picks here, center of the page with best bets and more. We will be locked and loaded here for this card on Friday. Remember, all of our one-day passes are profit guaranteed. They must turn a profit amount purchased is credit back to your account for site credits. That's profit guarantee. And then our promo code TonyT at checkout will knock off that 15%. The link's in the description to get signed up. So let's go ahead. Let's get this one underway. Middle Tennessee State and Kennesaw State for Saturday. Middle Tennessee State is 1-3 after their 42-28 home defeat to Marshall. Blue Raiders rushed for over 4 yards a carry and had success in the passing game. They allowed 3.9 yards rushing, but 261 yards passing for 8.6 yards per pass attempt. Nicholas Vitadio, 19 of 32 passes for 299 yards with 2 touchdowns and a pick. Kennesaw State improved to 2-2 with their 28-21 home victory against Arkansas State. The Owls rolled up 497 yards with really good passing and 3.9 yards per rush attempt. They limited the Redwoods to 3.3 yards per rush and only 5.5 yards per pass attempt. Mario Odom in the game, 25 of 34 passing, 308 yards with a touchdown. He rushed for 101 yards and a score. Middle Tennessee State has struggled on the road, 2.4 yards per rush, only 6 yards per pass attempt. On defense on the road, they are allowing 5.9 yards per rush, 71% completions. Kennesaw State rushing for nearly 5 yards a carry at home with a really good quarterback play. On defense at home, holding teams just about over 3 yards per rush, over 6 yards per pass attempt. Blue Raiders 2-6 to the spread on the road in the conference. Pick here Kennesaw State minus 7.5. Liberty and Old Dominion going off here on Saturday. Liberty fell to 1-3 after their 21-13 home defeat to James Madison. The Flames rushed for 3.8 yards a carry and passed poorly. They allowed 227 yards rushing to the Dukes for 5.5 yards a carry with 8.5 yards per pass attempt. Ethan Vasco in the game, 4 of 10 passing, 37 yards. He rushed 52 yards and a touchdown. He got banged up but got positive news from the head coach this week. Old Dominion 2-1 after a 45-26 road win at Virginia Tech. Monarchs posted 526 yards for rush for 250. They allowed nearly 5 yards per rush to the Hokies with 6.8 yards per pass attempt. Colton Joseph in the game, 16 of 22 passing, 276 yards with 2 touchdowns. Liberty getting very poor quarterback that play with lack of accuracy. They allowed 231 yards rushing per game and 6.1 yards per rush. ODU offense has been explosive behind 7.7 yards here per run and efficient play at the quarterback position. The Monarchs were competitive in a spread covering loss in Indiana. Liberty has failed to cover 6 straight dating to last year. They've lost all games against FBS teams by double digits this season. The Flames 1-4 to the spread on the road in the non-conference. Pick here Old Dominion minus 16. Jacksonville State and Southern Miss going off here on Saturday. Jacksonville State now 2-2 after a 45-10 home victory against FCS Murray State. 2 weeks ago, it was a 41-34 road defeat at Georgia Southern. The Gamecocks rushed for 213 yards for 5.1 yards a carry and moved the football through the air. Defensively, they allowed 219 yards rushing for 5.2 yards a carry with 8 yards per pass attempt. Gavin Wimsatt, 17 of 31 passes for 188 yards with a touchdown. He rushed for 50 yards and a score. Southern Miss 2-2 after a 30-20 road defeat to Louisiana Tech. Golden Eagles rushed for 3.5 yards a carry and moved the football through the air. They limited the Bulldogs on the ground and allowed 239 yards passing for 11.5 yards per pass attempt. Braylon Braxton completed 28 of 47 passes for 392 yards with 2 touchdowns and a pick. Golden Eagles have defended well at home. Jacksonville State has gotten really poor quarterback play away from home with poor pass defense. Gamecocks 3-5 the spread on the road in the non-conference. Golden Eagles 4-1 the spread as a home favorite. Pick here Southern Miss -4. Arizona and Iowa State for Saturday. Arizona improved to 3-0 after their 23-17 home victory against Kansas State. The U of A rushed for 234 yards, 5.2 yards a carry, and inefficient in the passing game. They held Kansas on the ground and limited them on the ground and allowed 88 yards passing. Noah Fifita, 16-33 passes for 178 yards. He rushed for 48 yards and 2 touchdowns. Iowa sits at 4-0 after a 24-16 road win at Arkansas State. Cyclones were efficient through the air and rushed for 187 yards for 5.5 yards a carry. They allowed 4 yards a carry on the ground of the Redwoods for 222 yards passing for 6.7 yards per pass attempt. Rocco back in the game, 14-25 passing, 265 yards with a touchdown and pick in the game. All right, Iowa has been strong on defense this year, getting accurate quarterback play with 8.5 yards per pass attempt. Arizona plays their first true road game. They were pounded in their final 3 road games for a composite score of 146-59 and missed the bowl game. The Wildcats 0-3 the spread as a road underdog of 7 or fewer points. Iowa State here 3-0 to the spread as home favorite of 3.5 to 10 points. Pick your Iowa State here minus the 6.5. Virginia Tech and NC State. This one going off here on Saturday. Virginia Tech fell to 1-3 after a 38-6 home victory against FCS Wofford. 2 weeks ago, it was a 45-26 home defeat to Old Dominion. The Hokies rushed for 167 yards for 4.9 yards a carry and moved the football through the air. On defense, they allowed 526 yards to the Monarchs, playing extremely poorly against the run and pass. Kyron Drones, 26-39 passing for 266 yards and 3 touchdowns and a pick. He had 65 yards rushing and a score. NC State now 3-1 with a 45-33 road defeat at Duke. Wolfpack moved the football for 535 yards, 171 yards rushing for nearly 5 yards a carry. On defense, they allowed 418 yards in the game, 4.3 yards per rush, 9.6 yards per pass attempt. C.J. Bailey in the game, 29-39, 264 yards with 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. He also lost a fumble. Virginia Tech fired their head coach following the loss at ODU. They let go of their defensive coordinator last year despite good scoring defense a season ago. I thought that was a bad move and, of course, led to his demise because Virginia Tech is now allowing over 4.5 yards per rush and 9.7 yards per pass attempt. They have allowed 44 and 45 points in their past 2 games against FBS teams. NC State this year rushing for 95 yards a carry and completing 72% of their passes for 8.5 yards per pass attempt. Wolfpack have struggled defending the pass. NC State has gone over in 5-7. Hokies 9-3 to the over on the road in their past 12. They're away from home. Pick here will be Virginia Tech and NC State over 58. Western Kentucky and Missouri State going off here on Saturday. Western Kentucky now 3-1 after their 31-16 home victory against Nevada. WKU rushed for 145 yards for 4.4 yards a carry. They limit the Wolfpack through the air, but allowed 207 yards rushing for 5.5 yards a carry. Maverick McIver 22 of 33 passing for 216 yards and a pick. Missouri State 2-2 on the year after a 42-10 home victory against FCS Tennessee Martin. 2 weeks ago, it was a 28-10 home defeat to SMU. The Bears rushed for 2 yards a carry and moved the ball through the air. On defense, they allowed 4.9 yards a carry and 21 yards passing for 7.8 yards per pass attempt. Missouri State is struggling to run the football, 2.9 yards per rush, and have been poor in both running and pass defense. WKU is getting accurate and efficient passing, 67% completion rate, 8 yards per pass attempt. Hilltoppers have defended the pass well. WKU 2-0 the spread as a favorite of 7 or fewer points. Pick here Western Kentucky here plus the 5. Memphis and FAU going off here on Saturday. Memphis 4-0 after a 32-31 home victory against Arkansas. Tigers gained 489 yards, rushed for 290 for over 7 yards a carry. Defensively, they did give up 500 yards to the Razorbacks, poor in stopping both the run and pass. Brendan Lewis, 15 of 30 passing for 199 yards with a touchdown and pick. He rushed for 103 yards and 2 scores. FAU 1-2 after a 38-28 road defeat to FIU. The Owls are now 1-2 there in this game after the result. The Owls moved the football effectively, 478 yards, 4.4 yards a carry, but defensively they allowed 406 yards in the game with FIU with 224 rushing for 5.5 yards a carry. Kane Vatkamp here, 33 of 50 for 343 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 3 picks. He also had a rushing touchdown in the game. Memphis just hitting all the key data points. Nearly 6 yards a carry on the ground, 7.5 yards per pass attempt. The whole team's just over 3 yards a carry, 6.8 yards per pass attempt. FAU also had a loss to Maryland by 32, but that was on the road. Their wins came against weak teams in FIU and FCS, Florida A&M. The Tigers have covered 7 straight dating back to last year. They beat an improving Troy team on the road by 21. FAU 1-5 of the spread as a home underdog. Pick here Memphis minus 13.5. Oregon and Penn State going off here on Saturday. Oregon 4-0 after a, pound up the win. Big win here against Oregon State. Was at the 54-7, that neighborhood. Ducks posted 585 yards in a dominating performance. They limited the Beavers to 67 yards rushing, 80 passing in the game. Dante Moore, 21-31 passing for 305 yards and 4 touchdowns. He rushed for 53 yards. Penn State now 3-0 after a 52-6 home victory against VCS Villanova. Prior was a 34-0 home victory against FIU. Penn State rushed for 209 yards for 6.7 yards a carry. They allowed 3.5 yards per rush to the Golden Panthers with 4.5 yards per pass attempt. Drew Allar in the game, 19-33 passing for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. Penn State has played really a weak schedule. It could be difficult adjusting of the speed here of Oregon without tough opponents so far on their schedule. Oregon, their road win at Northwestern, rushed for nearly 6 yards a carry. Very accurate at the quarterback position here, 78%. They sat starters in the fourth quarter in that game. Could have been even a wider margin of victory. The Ducks 7-3 to the spread on the road. Penn State 1-3 to the spread at home, facing teams that average 31 points per game or greater. Pick here will be Oregon plus 3.5. App State and Boise State. This one going off here on Saturday. we got App State here 2-1 after a 38-22 road defeat at Southern Miss. Mountaineers moved the football through the air, but rushed for only 2.5 yards a carry. On defense, they allowed 4.2 yards per rush, but 279 yards passing for 9 yards per pass attempt. A.J. Swan in the game, 15-23 passing for 217 yards and 3 picks. Boise State 2-1 after a 49-37 road win at Air Force. Broncos piled up 592 yards, dominating the run and pass. Defensively, they allowed 517 yards to the Falcons with 5 yards per rush, 12.5 yards allowed per pass. Maddox Matson in the game, 13-23 passing for 276 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. He expected to play despite being banged up. App State has played a weaker schedule with Southern Miss, Charlotte, FCS, Lindenwood there. They have 2 road games and given up 5 yards per rush, 71% completions, 9 yards per pass attempt. They have not been able to run the football on the road. Boise State plays their first home game against an FBS foe. Their offensive numbers have been strong here, nearly 7 yards per rush, 292 yards passing for 8.5 yards per pass attempt. App State 0-3 to the spread on the road, following a bye. Boise State 9-2 to the spread as a home favorite. Pick here Boise State minus the 15.5. UMass and Missouri going off here on Saturday. UMass 0-3 after a 47-7 road defeat to Iowa. Mountaineers rushed for just 26 yards, ineffective in the passing game. Defensively, they allowed 201 yards rushing, 5 yards a carry, and 234 yards passing, 7.5 yards per pass attempt. Branson Rhodes injured, won't start. A.J. Harrison just 4 of 8 passing for 56 yards. Is a redshirt freshman. Missouri 4-0. It was a 29-20 home victory against South Carolina. The Tigers posted 456 yards with 285 rushing for 5.9 yards a carry. They held the Gamecocks to negative yardage here on the ground, minus 9 yards with 302 passing for 6.6 yards per pass attempt. Bo Burbilla, 16-27 passing, 171 yards with a touchdown and a pick. He rushed for 72 yards in the game. UMass is rushed for just over 2.5 yards a carry and really bad shape at quarterback. Minutemen are struggling to stop the run and pass. Missouri put up 46 points per game with 6.1 yards per rush and get an accurate quarterback play. UMass will struggle to get points on the board. Tigers 3-0 to the spread at home when favored by 31 or greater points. Pick here Missouri minus 44.5. San Jose State and Stanford. This one going off here on Saturday. San Jose State 1-2 after a 31-28 home victory to FCS Idaho. Prior, it was a 38-7 road defeat in Texas. The Spartans were ineffective with their passing game, rush for 3.2 yards a carry. They allowed nearly 5 yards per rush to the Longhorns, with 317 yards passing for over 9.5 yards per pass attempt. Walker Eget here in the game, 21 of 42 passing, 188 yards with a pick. Stanford now 1-3 after a 48-20 road defeat at Virginia. Cardinal rushed for just over 1 yard a carry. They're inefficient in the passing game. They gave 590 yards to the Cavaliers with 4 stoppages in the run and passing game. Ben Gilbronson here, 20 of 29 passing for 286 yards and two touchdowns. The Spartans are getting inaccurate quarterback play. Stanford has put up some good numbers in their lone home game against BC that resulted in a 10-point win. San Jose State has a 2-point home loss against Central Michigan as they were held to just 14 points. In that home win, the Cardinals held BC just 2.5 yards per rush, 5.8 yards per carry on the ground, per pass attempt, I should say, and efficient quarterback play. So we're going to take here Stanford here minus 3. Alabama and Georgia for Saturday nights. We got Alabama here at 2-1 after a 38-14 home victory against Wisconsin. Crimson Tide rushed for only 72 yards, but had a monster game through the air. Defensively, they held the Badgers to 2.7 yards a carry, 117 yards passing for nearly 7 yards per pass attempt. Ty Simpson in the game, 24 of 29 passing for 382 yards and 4 touchdowns. Georgia sits at 3-0 with a 44-41 road win at Tennessee. Bulldogs gained 502 yards with efficient passing, 198 yards on the ground. They held the Volunteers to 3.5 yards a carry with 371 yards passing for 10.5 yards per pass attempt. Gunnar Stockton in the game, 23 of 31 passing for 304 yards with 2 touchdowns. He rushed for 38 yards and a score in the game. Alabama in their loss at Florida State was held to just 3 yards a carry and 5.9 yards per pass attempt. They allowed 230 yards rushing in the loss, over 4.5 yards a carry. Georgia is getting accurate passing and holding opponents to just 2.7 yards per rush. Alabama 1-4 the spread on the road, facing teams that allow 0.25 yards per rush or fewer. The pick here will be Georgia minus 3. Washington State and Colorado State. This one for Saturday. Washington State fell to 2-2 after a 59-24 home defeat to Washington. Cougars in the game. That run game was stymied. 27 yards on 28 carries. Defensively, they gave 5.2 yards per rush and 15.7 yards per pass attempt. We got to Zevi Eckhoff, 25-26 passing for 217 yards, 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. He had a rushing score in the game. Colorado State here 1-2 after a 17-16 home defeat to UTSA. Rams rushed for 153 yards for 4.1 yards a carry. They allowed 172 yards rushing to the Roadrunners with 5.2 yards per carry along with 6.4 yards per pass attempt. Jackson Brousseau, 10 of 12 passing for 78 yards and a touchdown. He takes over for ineffective Braden Fowler Nicolosi. Rams passing game has been ineffective. The Cougars have a home win against the Mountain West team in San Diego State by 23. They're in their home stadium. Washington State is getting accurate quarterback play and averaging 8.5 yards per pass attempt. We'll take Washington State here plus 6. Kentucky and South Carolina for Saturday. Kentucky is 2-1 after their 48-23 home victory against Eastern Michigan. Wildcats put up 492 yards and were dominant rushing as well as in the passing game. Defensively, they allowed 4.4 yards a carry, but 330 yards passing for 7.7 yards per pass attempt. Cutter Bully in the game, 12 of 21 passing for 240 yards with 2 touchdowns. South Carolina 2-2 after a 29-20 road defeat at Missouri. Gamecocks moved the ball through the air, but rushed for negative yardage here, -9. They got crushed defensively, giving up 456 yards with 285 rushing for nearly 6 yards a carry. The North Sellers here, 18-28 passing for 302 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kentucky covered at home against Ole Miss. Very competitive in the game. South Carolina in conference play rushing for less than 2 yards a carry, and on defense giving up over 5 yards per rush and losing both games, including a 31-7 loss at home to Vanderbilt. Wildcats were able to rush for 4.5 yards a carry against the Rebels. They are 6-3 to the spread as a underdog. South Carolina 3-5 to the spread at home against winning teams. We'll take Kentucky here at +5.5. Marshall and Louisiana for Saturday. Marshall now 2-2 after a 42-28 road win at Middle Tennessee State. Doreen Hurd rushed for 189 yards for 4 yards a carry and effective through the air. They allowed 74 yards rushing to the Blue Raiders, but 300 yards passing for 9.1 yards per pass attempt. Carlos Del Rio Wilson, 18-22 passing, 261 yards, 4 touchdowns. He had a rushing touchdown in the game. Louisiana 1-3, a 34-31 road defeat at Eastern Michigan. Raging Cajuns gained 441 yards with 214 rushing for 6.7 yards a carry. Defensively, they allowed 183 yards on the ground. The Eagles for 5.1 yards per carry and 7.3 yards per pass attempt. Daniel Beal in the game, 20-33 passing for 222 yards and 2 scores. Marshall's defense is holding teams at 3.4 yards a carry, 56% completion rate. Raging Cajuns allowing nearly 5 yards a carry with a 68% completion rate. Marshall in their lone road game got really good quarterback play. Doreen Hurd 3-1 to the spread as the road favorite. Louisiana 5-10 to the spread at home. Pick here will be Marshall -1. Louisiana Tech and UTEP for Saturday. Louisiana Tech 3-1 after their 30-20 home victory against Southern Miss. Bulldogs were limited on the ground but effective in the passing game. Defensively, they held the Golden Eagles to 3.5 yards a carry, but 392 yards passing for 8.3 yards per attempt. Trey Kukuk missed the game due to injury. Blake Baker here, 15-21 passing for 239 yards with a touchdown on the ground as well. UTEP drops to 1-3 after a 31-25 home defeat to UL Monroe. The Miners' run game was halted for 33 yards, but moved the football well through the air. They surrendered 250 yards rushing for 6 yards a carry, along with nearly 10 yards per pass attempt. Malachi Nelson here, 22 of 46 passing for 406 yards with 3 touchdowns and 2 picks. UTEP only win came against an FCS school. Louisiana Tech is playing good defense, holding teams just over 3 yards a carry and just 56% completion rate. UTEP is struggling with their run game, 3.4 yards a carry, and getting inaccurate quarterback play. They are 1-3 of the spread at home against winning teams. Pick here Louisiana Tech here, -3.5. BYU and Colorado for Saturday. BYU now 3-0 after their 34-13 road win in East Carolina. Cougars rushed for 172 yards for 5.1 yards a carry and were effective in the passing game. They held the Pirates to 3.4 yards a carry with 285 yards passing for 6.8 yards per attempt. Bear Bachmeier, 18-25 passing for 246 yards with a touchdown. He had a rushing score as well. Colorado 2-2, a 37-20 home victory against Wyoming. Buffs rushed for 193 yards for 6.2 yards a carry and were effective in the passing game. They allowed 4 yards per rush to the Cowboys with 7 yards per pass attempt. Caden Salter, 18-28 passing for 304 yards, 3 touchdowns. He rushed for 86 yards and a score in the game. Colorado has lost both games against major conference teams in Houston and Georgia Tech. BYU's offense is rushed for 6.5 yards a carry and get accurate quarterback play. On defense, they hold opponents at 1.7 yards per rush, 5.1 yards per pass attempt. The Buffs defensively give up over 4.5 yards a carry and 8 yards per pass attempt. BYU 2-0 the spread on the road, favored by 3.5 to 10 points. Pick here BYU -7. For more free pick videos, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Lots of free picks over our channel, delivered by myself as well as a team of cappers here at Tony'sPicks.com, making this a great channel to subscribe to. Give us a like and thumbs up. Greatly appreciate it. It really helps us build up our audience when you do that. And then visit our site, Tony'sPicks.com, for our best bets. Our premium plays are there. And use that promo code TonyT at checkout. We'll knock off that 15%. The link's on the description to get signed up. That's going to do it for now. I'm Tony T. We'll talk with you guys later.